these are exciting times, and exciting times calls for exciting measures, and we're going to deliver to you some really juicy content that will allow you to be fruitful in every season of your life. So the season of entrepreneurship, the season of parenting, we're going to give you some tools that we've applied, that we are applying to our own lives. So be excited, be inspired.
Yes, and welcome Amber.
Amber,
Welcome
welcome.
Amber. Welcome. If you could just move the seat up a little bit. That's beautiful. I think this way. Woo! Welcome Amber. And we're live. We're going live. Welcome, guys. Welcome. Woo! We are so excited.
Yes.
For you guys to be
part
joining
two
us.
Of our
Part
Be
two.
Fruitful
So
series.
as you're all coming in, we are doing our Be Fruitful series. The first one, we talked about the importance of taking action. Your story matters. Your story matters. And in the background, joined with us is our baby girl, Genesis. She's just chilling with us on this beautiful Sunday. So I want you to share, let people know what's happening at this time as we're going to this live series where we are supporting you in getting your international best-selling book done.
Yes.
And for many of you, you need some guidance. For some of you, you need motivation. For some of you, you need some transformation. Whatever it is, we are in this Be Fruitful series. We want to give you the tools that you need either to A, go right out, take this work, take the framework and go running, or B, partner, lock arms, lock arms with us as we support you, or someone else who can definitely get you to the place that you want to go. All right, so if you look in the description above, or you look in the description below, based on your orientation, you will see at the end of this live series, you can definitely book an appointment for us just to have a clarity session to discover how to get your best-selling book done, how to get that story out, turn that story into a movement, turn that message into a mission. So I want you to definitely get excited about what is taking place here today. All right, guys? So
let's celebrate some of those folks who came in for the last session. Folks like Marshawn, who not only came in, but she took action. She actually is starting her international best-selling book.
Wow.
So we're excited for Marshawn. We're excited for Regina. We are excited for Juliana. Jasmine, we're excited for you as well.
Jasmine,
and welcome.
Hi, Jasmine.
We look forward, guys, to your breakthrough. We celebrate you in advance for what you're about to do with the information that we're sharing.
All right, so let's continue the celebration. I want you to put in the comments this is a beautiful Sunday. What are you celebrating? What are you thankful for? What are you grateful about? Just put it in the comments. I'm grateful for. Hi, Laurie. Welcome, Laurie. Hi. So I'm grateful for. Just put it in the comments below. I am grateful for.
What are you grateful for today, Marley?
I am grateful for staying in action. I'm grateful for staying in action.
Yeah.
Because action is the greatest antidote to despair, and I'm grateful for the ability just to stay in action. Sometimes when you see other people in action, it comes at great cost, and sometimes we take it for granted what it really the price that you have to pay. But I'll tell you something, the price is even greater when you don't go into action. So I'm grateful for just staying in action. Having the strength to stay in action, having the tenacity to stay in action.
Yes, because it takes all of that. It takes endurance, and endurance does not come easy.
It doesn't.
There was a quote from Muhammad Ali, and he said, he hated every single day of training, Lori, every single day of training, Jasmine. But he said that he would much rather live his life as a champion than to die, just an ordinary person. So he endured every single day of training in order to live his life as a champion. But it wasn't easy. It came at a cost. And so I want to remind all of us here, when people show up, when they go on their lives, Richard, when they are, just in action with their business and doing things, showing up in the world, it doesn't come easy, right? But because they want to live a championship life, they decide to keep pressing, keep pushing, and they make it happen. And those of you who are here today, you are a champion in your own right.
Come on.
If you are a parent, you know what it's like waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? To change those diapers and to feed those babies. But you do it nonetheless, day in and day out, because you're a champion. So each of us has that inner champion on the inside of us. And we want to call that forth so that not only can you be a champion in your home, but you can show up and be a champion in the world by blessing folks with your fruit and your story.
Come on now. So as we get started, let's do some revision. Next step, what did we cover yesterday for those who are joining us? If you did not see the live stream yesterday, I encourage you to go back. You could go on the feed on our page. You would see that we looked at taking action.
Yes.
And the importance of taking action. All right. As we said before, taking action is the antidote to despair. So if you are looking at really moving from a sense of inertia, getting out of your stuck place, take action. If you are to be fruitful, you must take action. And there were 3 points in helping you to craft your international best-selling book. There were 3 keys, 3 juicy keys that we shared that will assist you in getting some clarity. Hi Jasmine, welcome, good afternoon, thank you so much for your greetings. One of the key things we shared was, one, if it's not documented, it does not get done. If it's not documented, it doesn't get done. For many of us, we are great visionaries, we have sometimes great clarity, or we may be great orators, but if you don't document your story represents your why, your story represents your existence, your story is that seed, your story speaks of why you exist. And if it's not documented, you will live life by accident. You either stumble into things, but I'll tell you something, purpose is never stumbled upon.
That's right.
It's an intentional process. It's a blueprint that's on the inside of you, and when you write it and you make it plain, it's every day you live life on purpose.
Amen. I like that. Every day living life
every day you live life on purpose. Secondly, we talked about if it's not documented,
it does not exist.
If it does not exist, we looked at the history of ancient Egypt, the Kemets. We looked at their life story, in the attempts to craft and to capture history, to capture not ancient civilization, but modern civilization. And if that was not documented, it just did not exist. We will not understand the fundamentals of mathematics. We will not understand the fundamentals of botany. We will not understand the fundamentals of science. So it's very, very important. If it doesn't get documented, it does not exist. So you may be a great speaker. You are doing a disservice by speaking on the stage and walking away. You may be a great orator, but you are doing yourself a disservice if you're speaking on the stage and then walking away. Your book is that low-hanging fruit, that low-hanging commitment that people can take you with them, take you on the taxi, take you on the road, take you in the plane. It really allows you to multiply yourself and to allow your words to reverberate in perpetuity. And then finally, we said if it's
documentation beats conversation any day.
Documentation beats conversation any day.
And that's really about, making sure that, when you show up in a room, whether you are doing, workshops for your business or you're doing presentations for your job or your career, it's important that you take a tool with you, like a book, that will allow people to not just see you, but to understand you, right? Because your words represent the promises that you'll give, but your book in hand represents what you'll deliver.
Come on now.
And that is what separates the good from the great.
So documentation beats conversation any day. You must see writing not just as a cathartic moment. You must not just see writing only as a healing process, but you must also see writing as part of your legacy.
Yes.
How am I no longer just trying to leave a legacy, but to live a legacy? So when you are in front of decision makers, I'll tell you something. We say to our son, he's only 2 years old, readers are leaders. And leaders, they read. So you may think you have the power of gab, you may think you have the power of, you could say it and people will believe it, but even if you impress them, they want to know the facts. They want to know the numbers. They want to know your why. They want to know your passion. They want to know your story. They want to know what's your unique service proposition, what sets you apart from the market, and what will always, listen to this carefully, what will always, somebody say always. I want you guys to warm yourself up. Drum roll. Put it in the chat. Always, always. What will always set you apart from the market is your story. You may be a great motivational speaker, a transformational speaker. You may be an informational speaker,
or an
aspiring speaker. You may be a business owner. You may be running a company, maybe working in your investor and looking to build your own vision. What always sets you apart, there are many speakers, there are many orators, there are many doctors, there are many lawyers, there are many different types of speakers. But what will always set you apart, hi Shiva, hi, woo! What will always set you apart, Shiva? What will always set you apart, Gabriel? What will always set you apart, Robin? What will always set you apart, Diane, Laurie? What will always set you apart is your story.
That's right.
Your story is your unique service proposition. It's what defines you in the marketplace. So a decision not to write your story is a decision not to stand out. A decision not to write your story is a decision not to be noticed. A decision to not write your story is a decision to say, don't choose me. Pass me by. So remember those 3 points. 1, what doesn't get documented will not get done. 2, if it's not documented, it does not exist. And 3, documentation beats conversation any day. Any day. So as we go on in our part 2, we are talking about take courage.
Yes.
Take courage. As you go on this journey of writing your story, it is important to take courage. A decision to write your story is not an easy one. A decision to write your story is not a comfortable one, but it requires courage to do something great. And I want to encourage you today. You know, my wife is only saying amen because we just came from church, you know, for some of us. Yes. So let's read some of the comments before we go straight into the content. Shiva said, my story is my UPS.
You're unique.
All right. Well, it's actually USP, all right? But that's all right, Shiva. We love you. Is your USP, your unique service proposition, what sets you apart from the marketplace? She says, yes. Documentation beats conversation every day. All right, decision makers, they like your presentation, they like how you look, but they want to know the numbers. They want to know who you are as a person. So as we move forward, we want you to take courage. Take courage as you move forward in writing your story. Take courage as you move forward in crafting your message. It is your responsibility for your mission. There is no shortcut to success. There is none. If you found it, please let us know. All right, if you found that shortcut, please let us know. But I think from our journey, we know that there is no shortcut to success. As a matter of fact, success leaves clues. People who are geniuses in their industry, people who are talented, people who are resourced. When you look at their journey, you will find a book. When you look at their journey, you will find a story. All right. So that's their unique service proposition, and we want you to lay hold of your uniqueness in the marketplace by taking courage. Now, there are 3 things that will help you in taking courage. Number 1, it requires a personal commitment. I want somebody to write that down. Personal commitment. It takes a personal commitment in order to take courage. And that personal commitment comes from a personal decision. You know, when we really reflect on our personal journey, it requires a personal commitment. Shanda, what do you think about that personal commitment?
Well, first of all, when you decide to have a personal commitment, that means that you are putting all other options off of the table. You're taking them off the table. You're telling yourself that no matter what, I am going to see this thing through to the end. Maybe that thing for you is a marriage, right? That you feel is on the rocks. And, you know, we're actually in the process of writing our book called Love Never Fails. And one of the things that we find as a common theme is that when you commit your life to someone for all of your life, right, that journey will require you to every day make a personal commitment.
That's right.
And so when I think about a personal commitment, I think about when I decided to not just be content with being in a corporate America position, right? I was graduating. Am I on the right track?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Right. I was graduating from American University, and those of you who are streaming live from my page, you'll see this picture. And what I was doing is I was trying to figure out whether I wanted to go and get a corporate job or to do something else. One thing I remember very distinctly is I was sitting in front of my computer at the keyboard, Lori, about to press send on my final research paper. And I thought after 2 years, I'm like, wow, this is it? This is it? So you mean to tell me that once I submit this, Sheba, then my life will be unrecognizable? But Kevin, it wasn't unrecognizable in a good way. What I saw my life being after graduating was working a 9 to 5. Going in and day out to a corporate job that I probably didn't like, and I would only have that to look forward to for the next 30, 40 years. So as I pressed that button on my keyboard and submitted my research paper as my final act of submission for graduate school, I got really sad, but I was also hopeful. I was hopeful that if I decided at that moment to not go the traditional route, if I decided in that moment that I was going to do something a little bit different, that I was going to bet on myself, that my life would change. And it did. Little did I know that, what was it, almost 10 years ago, that decision to start my own business 2 months before graduating would be a decision that would bless me going forward. It would be a decision that would bless my marriage. It would be a decision that allowed me to even meet my husband. Entrepreneurship. That one decision allowed many more blessings to come into my life because I had the courage to bet on me.
So personal decisions, making, if let me put it this way, if you are to take courage, it starts with making a personal commitment. And when you make that personal commitment, sometimes we make personal commitments just by the thought of what's at stake, just by the thought of what can be lost. You know, Chantal talks about, you know, just thinking about doing a corporate job. You know, Kevin, you know all too well about this, right? As you are going through your transition, Kevin, as you are coming to terms with, I've lost freedom, you know, I've lost flexibility, I've lost the ability to take massive action, I've lost the ability of, you know, because we've all grown up with the saying, you know, your parents always say, get good grades and get a good job. But when you take that job, that JOB stands for just over broke. Come on, guys, you know how that is, just over broke.
Yeah, and you're not only just over broke in your finances, but you could also be just over broke in your emotional health.
Right, your emotional health. It feels like a job. Your dreams feel like a job. You always have to be making these false choices between, should I continue in this profession or should I move forward? You're always just over. So, you know, when she has gone through that journey, you know, it's something that I had to discover myself, you know, because coming from the Caribbean, it's a traditional type of island. So we're big on education, all right, whereas Chantal, you know, big city girl from Maryland, you know, running her own PR company in Atlanta, you know, she had this entrepreneurial spirit, and she saw the importance of, you know, taking risk, you know, risk it all to gain it all. And when she made that massive action, it had a ripple effect.
Yes, that one commitment freed you.
That's right.
Wow.
You know, because I remember for those who are streaming from our page here, I remember, you know, that this was me. All right, I was this guy with this great aspiration, you know, wanting to, you know, to ascend, you know, to achieve something. So from a little boy, I always had my little briefcase. I always had my little shirt and tie, and I was so excited. You know, as a professional, I moved from, you know, working and studying. I worked in the corporate sector, you know, and as we said, I was diligent and I was dutiful. And it paid off. Being diligent and being dutiful paid off. How many of us, we know it has paid off being diligent and being dutiful? How many of you know it has paid off being diligent and dutiful? You're diligent and dutiful on your job. You're diligent and dutiful, you know, in your career. And you have seen some increase. You've seen some advancement. And I saw saw those advancements. I saw some, I would say, it paid off. I remember graduating at the top of my class, and in graduating at the top of my class, it was a very, very heart-filling, heartwarming experience. I landed one of the top, the only top job within the state sector, and the youngest person to serve the prime minister as his protocol officer and personal assistant. And I was just around 21, 22. So I got to meet the Obamas, I got to meet the Queen of England. We traveled, and it was everything to me. As a young man, it was everything to me. But in that experience of discovering true courage, many of you can admit many times what you call courageous is just playing right by that line. What you might think is courageous is really playing full out in the safe zone. Let me say that again. You realize that even though you've made a personal commitment, to be dutiful, to be diligent, you have not truly discovered what it is to take true courage. And sometimes being courageous to you is really, in definition, you are simply playing full out in a safe place.
Yeah.
And I played full out in a safe place. I was an excellent student. I was a diligent worker. I was, all these things, until I experienced a breakdown in my life. And what was that breakdown? I became bankrupt, homeless. I remember I was going at the height of my professional career. I got a PhD scholarship to go study abroad, and this guy, jacket and tie, experiencing all these different experiences internationally, go to a place transitioning from being a full-time student, from being a full-time employee to being a full-time student. And while I was there, I lost my scholarship money. While I was there, I experienced, some really pitfalls, some not speed bumps, but potholes. Have you ever been driving, Kevin? You're just driving, great momentum, and there are some potholes. You feel it, especially us as men with all vehicles. You feel like you just went over the pothole. And I felt that breakdown inside. And I felt like I lost my identity. Where I thought I was playing full out, I was simply being courageous in that safe zone. I was being courageous on the shore. I was being courageous in the shallow. But I realized that, and you all would realize that sometime in your journey, that in order for you to get to that place of greatness, sometimes life will cause some divine disruptions.
Yeah.
And I had such a disruption that it made me feel like I did not know who I was anymore. I felt alone. I felt naked. I didn't just feel homeless. I was homeless. I felt like I lost my identity. I felt like I let down my entire family, that I didn't tell anyone what was going on with me. Thousands of miles away from Trinidad, I am in Canada. It's minus 20 degrees. I'm without food, I'm without money, and I just felt desperate. And I had met this young lady just a couple weeks before I went to Canada. It was my first time to the US, and we met at a conference. And I went, to Canada to study right after that conference. And I want you to follow me here. It was such an embarrassing position. I didn't even tell her anything.
Didn't.
Right? I was just embarrassed. Come on, Kevin. You meet this girl who is so lovely, big player. You're gonna tell her, hey, I'm broke. All right. So after I left in the US, cash in the bank, my professional image intact, I left her, went to Canada, started my PhD, became broke, homeless, and ashamed. And in that moment, I became desperate. Desperate to not just get out of that circumstance, but just to survive. And this, master's, educated, former personal assistant, I had to do something that nobody would want to do. I worked as a painter. From being a graduate to being a painter. I was the painter boy in a painting store where I had to take 3 trains and 2 buses to get to my destination. It was a 2-hour ride just to get to my destination. And I had to put aside the professional jacket and the nice professional image. As you would see here on screen, I made friends. The guy on the right, he's from Morocco. The guy behind, he's from Ghana. And we painted from 6 in the morning till 10 at night.
Wow.
And I would wake up at 3 in the morning to get the bus from where I live to the city area, then get a train to where I needed to go, another train to another location. And it was a 2-hour journey, and I did that, Kevin, for months. And I was just happy to have something. How many of you, some of you just feel happy to finally just be caught up? You're unemployed and you're trying to choose between, should I write my book? Should I launch a business? Well, I'm just so happy I'm paying my bills now.
Yeah.
I'm finally getting some stability. And one day this young lady told me, she said, Emali, you have to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's what you're doing right now
that's sustaining you, or is it going to be you change it up a bit, do something different to get different results, so that you can go from just surviving to thriving.
Mm-hmm.
That was the decision. That was the ultimatum.
And she did not. This was carefrontation. All right. She didn't pamper me in my comfort zone, but she caused me to stretch to my next level. And I made that decision. I remember while I was walking, was my final day in my mind, but people didn't know. And I was happy getting paid. I had to make that decision to say, hey guys, this is my last day. And before I made that decision, I remember sitting. By that time, I was able to get an apartment. I couldn't pay because I was just trying to catch up with bills. And I was sitting in that apartment in the basement. It was cold. The taps were leaking. And every drip that fell on the bed, I started to feel I was living again. It brought rhythm back to my heart. I began to feel like that person that I remembered, that I could risk it again. But this time, it wasn't just playing in my comfort zone, but I felt I was walking slowly off the shore into the ocean, moving from ankle height water to knee high water to waist height water to now it is time to launch out into the deep. And I found the courage. I began to put aside my shame, my fears. I began to put aside the labels that I wasn't enough. I began to put aside the labels that I was a professional failure, moving from being a school professor to being a painter. And when I put these things aside, I started to see that these things were meant for my good. That I was able to weave a story, and it was in that place I was able to write my first book, my best-selling book on the power of identity. 7 steps to overtake and dominate. 7 steps, to rise out of the ashes. It was from that dark place I found myself. And one of the key things I've learned about taking courage is that not all the time you may have courage, but sometimes you have to borrow someone else's courage.
That's right.
And that's why I took her courage. She saw something in me that I couldn't see beyond my circumstances. So I borrowed her faith. I borrowed her inspiration, and I was able to rise up again. So many of you have the desire to write your story. You have the desire to get your best-selling book out, but you feel you don't have the courage. Sometimes it requires partnership. That's why we call our program Partnership Publishing, because sometimes you need to borrow somebody's faith.
Yes.
Sometimes you need to borrow somebody's expertise. Sometimes you need to leverage someone else's experience so that you can go to the next level. And I borrowed her faith. And I rose out of my comfort zone and I went into my courage zone, where I took courage. And I was able to build a successful consultancy business in leadership. I was able, not just to hold my story, but speak on stages and travel the world, saying to people, you can discover your identity again. So I want to encourage you that you may have courage in taking a personal decision. And sometimes when you take that personal decision, you're still shaking, you're still uncertain, you're still afraid. But sometimes in taking that decision, what's next? Sometimes you have to borrow somebody's courage. So first of all, it takes personal commitment, and number two, it also takes collective commitment, working with someone to get you to that place of courage, working with someone to get you to that place of your breathtaking future. And thirdly, what we want to share with them about taking courage, we want to talk about, in order for you to have courage, you have to have courageous commitment.
Yes, that radical action that'll allow you to get up and start doing even when you don't feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
That courageous commitment means that you are going to show up for yourself even when other people turn their backs on you.
Mm.
That courageous commitment means that your goals and your dreams, Simone, are non-negotiable, that you're taking every other option off of the table and you're saying, no matter what, I am here, I'm going to show up, and I am going to bet on me. That's what courageous commitment is all about.
So courageous commitment is taking radical action. Courageous commitment is allowing your goals to become non-negotiable. Courageous commitment is understanding that you refuse to go back to the life that you once knew. It's allowing, Simone, for those things that you've been accustomed to become strange to you, where you are discomforted, where you are uncomfortable with being comfortable.
Like Fannie Lou Hamer said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? You got to get to that point. And when you get there, once your mind is made up, then, only then, can your world begin to change.
You know, I remember this guy called Dorian Buller. He came to us. He was, a thought leader in his area. He was has a PhD in physics at, what was the name of the university?
It's either MIT or Stanford.
Yeah, I think it was Stanford University. And he worked a lot with young men in helping them understand the power of STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And he worked with young men for them to bridge the gap in understanding not just their desire and their passion in basketball, but also he wanted them to understand the power and the nexus between basketball and physics. So he came to us saying, he's been successful as a professor, as a researcher, and he's running a youth program, but he's just tired of being comfortable in where he was. He knew that there was more to his journey and more to his story. So we sat down with him and we planned a mastermind process of writing his book, turning his thesis, his passion, into a best-selling book called Physics and Basketball. And I tell you, when Dorian made that decision, to launch out into his story and making his passion turn into a movement, he was recognized by
Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors.
She realized this was onto her, right?
Yes.
So the Golden State, they recognize his work
as a community leader.
As a community leader, he was awarded. He was presented great funding for his program. Stephen Curry was the person who was able to honor him live on an NBA. Come on, somebody, on the NBA court during a game. And he was so ecstatic to know that when you take courage, it requires a courageous commitment. Because sometimes we know we have to take a courageous decision, but that courage is only for a moment. That courage is just for a season. That courage is just while you're at speak and write. Come on, somebody. Am I in somebody's God? That courage is only when you're in the conference. And as soon as you walk out that door, the courage begins to dissipate. As soon as you walk out of that door, that courage begins to decrease. As soon as you go back to that job, to that home, that courage begins to get softer and softer. And that courageous voice that says, it's time to take action, you begin to listen to the chatter that says, oh, no, not now. Hey, you have bills to pay. Oh, not now. Hey, you have this to do. Oh, not now. Nobody wants to read your story. Oh, not now. Nobody's interested in what you have to say. Oh, not now. Hey, you got to play it safe. You have a job. Just play it safe. Oh, not now. But I want you to know Courage requires commitment.
That's right.
Courage requires commitment. Commitment is the cousin to courage. They are family members. They walk hand in hand. So I encourage you, number one, if you have to take courage, if you are to be fruitful, if you are to see fruitfulness in your journey of writing your story, number one, it requires personal commitment. Number two, it requires a collective commitment, or a collective commitment, where you may have to borrow somebody's faith. You believe, but your faith feels so small, it feels so weak. You want to get up, but it requires at that time, while you're shaking, to hold somebody's hands.
That's right.
It requires you to grab onto someone's shoulder. It requires you to hold onto someone. All right. It requires you to take courage, to find your breath again, to find your opportunity again. Sometimes it just requires you to lean on someone. And in that process, you begin to get your strength again. And finally, as you take courage, it requires you to let that courage be a commitment, become non-negotiable, become a form of radical action, where you make a decision to refuse to go back to life of how you once knew it.
That's right. And you'll watch your environment begin to shift the moment you decide to take courageous commitment. You'll watch people around you change the moment you decide to take courageous commitment. Things will start to shift.
That's right.
Even your mentality. There's a quote that says that the mind, once it's stretched, by a new idea,
it never
returns back to its former dimension. Once the mind is stretched beyond with a new idea, it never returns back to its old dimension. So when you just take those baby steps of commitment, those baby steps of courage, eventually it will become a habit. And habits will become your lifestyle.
That's right. 7 steps to highly effective people. It talks about, the importance of each step that you take, your habits, by a man's thought. His thought becomes a reality, and that reality becomes his lifestyle, and that lifestyle becomes his destiny. And it all starts with an idea. It all starts with understanding that every decision has a ripple effect. It's like throwing a pebble on the ocean, and it ripples. And that ripple effect are the lives that you desire to impact. That ripple effect are the lives that you're called to serve. That ripple effect are the lives that that you're set apart to serve them, to nurture them to their best self, to nurture them to their highest level.
That's right. And we're here to nurture you. If there is someone here who, Simone, maybe you are thinking that you need to take courageous commitment toward your bestseller. If you're thinking that, hey, I would like to call myself an author, or
I would like to call myself an international best-selling author.
That's the difference. Now, we would like for you to apply lesson number 2, to borrow from someone's courage. Maybe you don't have the faith to believe that it's possible, but we believe in you.
Yes.
Maybe you don't have the community of support around you right now, but we're here for you. All it requires is for you to raise your hand, and say yes to yourself.
That's
and
right.
we'll be here to support you along the way.
Definitely. So I remember, Julia was such a person. So many people who borrowed our faith, and they are now pursuing their breathtaking future, from Molly, to Tiffany,
to Cheryl.
It's so many people.
Dozens and dozens of people just like you who decided to say yes to themselves, even when they didn't think it was possible.
So it's not impossible to, really become the author that you're called to be. It's not impossible to really lay hold of your breathtaking future. So we encourage you, to make that massive change, to take courage, to say that this is the season for you to be fruitful. No longer just talking the talk, but walking the talk. No longer saying, I'm pregnant with a story, I want to write 10 years, 15 years. Man, that's a long time to carry a baby.
Yes, it is.
We are your midwives in the process. Either we midwife you through the process of just pulling that story out and placing structure, texture, bringing you to that place of delivery. Maybe you say, hey, I'm not a strong writer, but I want someone who's able to really take my message and move it into a place of a bestseller, because there's a difference between being a writer and being an author. I remember Lisa explained that difference to me. She said, hey, I may not be an excellent writer, but I'm a powerful author because I have been a key part of the destiny and the author of my life. And no one else can tell your story greater than you. So maybe you are an excellent author. You can express yourself. You can tell us your journey, but you may not be a powerful writer. So we can become your surrogate mothers in walking this book for you, writing it, crafting it through our ghostwriters, crafting it through our developmental editors, our content developer editors, our proofreaders. So we charge you today to take courage. We charge you today to lay hold of your breathtaking future. We charge you today that now is the opportunity for you to write your bestseller. This is your opportunity to take action. A good friend of mine once says, and I call him a friend, he's Walt Disney. I've been reading a lot about his journey, and one of his greatest quote, he says that in your life journey, all dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. All dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. You will have courage to pursue your dreams if, number one, you take personal ownership and personal commitment. Number two, if you take collective commitment, lay hold of someone, lean on someone for the support that you need. And secondly, as you lean on that person, it's a partnership. There is a contributing force that takes place. When you begin to get your step again, you are a part of a commitment, where you make that commitment that your dreams are non-negotiable. When you make that commitment that what's on the inside of you, it is time to bring it out. You've been pregnant for too long, and we charge you to get your story out. We look forward to you booking the clarity call. We look forward to just supporting you. We charge you to lock arms with us as we take you to your next step, or maybe with someone else. But it is your responsibility to get your story out. It does not belong to you. There are people you're called to serve, and we want you to see you rise to your next best level. Have a great day. My name is Emwali.
And I'm Chantal.
And this is Genesis.
And this is Genesis.
And we love you.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Take care, guys.